Welcome back to Morning Joe. We have effectively connected now, Mr. Mayor, the soup cans with the string, and we are connected. Our apologies to you. Thank you for your patience, Mayor Morial. I'll let you pick up with the question I asked you. You've got a big collection of Democratic presidential contenders down with you at your conference. Who impressed your group there, the conference, the most?
Well, I thought they all did really well, and I thought they all did things that were impressive. Here's what I saw. Cory Booker was passionate, extremely forceful in his message. Amy Klobuchar exhibited a great sense of humor, someone that the crowd really didn't know. And Joe Biden exhibited folksiness and seemed to have, was the person that people were most interested in meeting, taking selfies with, and connecting with on a personal level. But all of them, I think, talked about the things that people wanted to hear. Voting rights, economic growth and development, how are you going to stop Russian interference, how are you going to improve schools, what are you going to do about the criminal justice system. So our format gave the candidates 8 to 10 minutes to really develop their thoughts, and then they took a series of Q&As that I presented to each and every one of them. So in that format, we heard, I think, a more thorough discussion than you get in these sort of multi-candidate debates or in these clips or in these sort of truncated things that comes across sometimes on cable television. But Biden seemed to have what Joe Biden, one of his great assets, seems to be his personal style, his ability to connect with people on a personal level. I saw that in display. Cory Booker did well. The crowd knows Cory Booker well. Amy Klobuchar, to some extent, was new to this sort of stage at the National Urban League. And Delaney and Ryan, who are candidates who are not getting a lot of shine, they also, I think, talked about economics, manufacturing, small business growth and development. So it was a good discussion. Today we've got 5 more candidates, including Kamala Harris, and I think great interest in her, Kristen Gillibrand, and Mayor Pete from South Bend, who's right here in the state of Indiana.
Yeah, they're all like little mini town halls where they do get to explain themselves and answer some of your questions. I want to ask you, Mr. Mayor, about a poll we've been talking about this morning and just get your read on it, coming out of the state of South Carolina, where Joe Biden leads by a healthy margin overall by 27 points. But when you look inside the numbers among African-American voters in South Carolina, Joe Biden has 51% support. You've got to go way down to 12% before you find Senator Kamala Harris, 10% for Bernie Sanders. So almost a 40-point lead in South Carolina among African-American voters for Joe Biden. How do you explain that?
African-American voters, from what I hear, are very interested in electability, the ability of whomever the nominee is to defeat Donald Trump, but also to take on Donald Trump. Now, I think it's early, Willie. It's early. We're just in late July, and so there's much time. I think Kamala Harris or Cory Booker or Elizabeth Warren or the other candidates have time to try to make up this difference. But what this reflects is Joe Biden is a well-known commodity, someone with whom people have worked with, a part of the Obama administration. And that long history and that sense that on day one he's ready to be president is what I think is helping him in the polls, as well as his personal style. I've said this, and have worked with many of the candidates. Joe Biden has this unique quality. I've seen it at play where he is as comfortable talking to a group of truck drivers or firefighters as he is in an African-American church or at someone's kitchen table. It's not with Joe Biden simply about issues. It's also about leadership style. And I think voters are assessing not just hard issues, they're evaluating that, but they're also evaluating leadership style. I think a Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren have not had the visibility as of yet, or a Cory Booker, or Kristen Gillibrand, for people to really assess their leadership style, how they would function in an office like president, how they would handle pressure. So those things, I think are in play. And this is what I hear from the people who are here in Indianapolis.
Sam Stein has a question for you, Mr. Mayor. Sam?
Mr. Mayor, I'm curious, this is not necessarily a policy issue for the Urban League, but it is a political issue that's dividing Democrats. And I'm wondering, while you're there in the room, what the appetite is for the party to begin impeachment proceedings. You talked a little bit about how electability is an asset for Joe Biden. The flip side of that, of getting rid of Trump, would be through an impeachment proceeding. So I'm curious, does the crowd seem to be agitating for it? And, you know, if so, what are they saying to you?
I hear people saying, while there's sort of this response that there would be support for impeachment, that it's more important to think about the end game and the fact that the election is just a little bit over a year away.
Right.
And that the important thing is to change the presidency and not to get, if you will, distracted. That being said, of course, you hear people saying, some people saying, yes, we need to impeach, but I also think that there is also not, people don't well understand the fact that the impeachment is a two-step process and would require not only a vote in the House, but a trial in the Senate. And I think when people are educated about the difficulty of the impeachment process, I think then they focus on, we want to get change, and let's do it through the ballot box. Now, one thing I will say, African-American voters are energized, they're fired up, they're ready to vote, they're paying attention to this election, they're watching the issues, and the other side of it is, and as you know, I've been around this for many, many election cycles, there's a competition for the African-American vote that I've not seen. Every one of these candidates in one way, shape, or form is competing and recognizing the influence of African-American voters, particularly in the Democratic primaries.
All right, Marc Morial, thank you so much. The
Always
National Urban League Conference. It's always good to have you in Indianapolis.